good afternoon and welcome to our online interview series published by the Dante Alighieri Society in Berlin. As you have been witnessing in the past months during this horrible pandemic, we decided to digitalize ourselves like many others and conduct a series of interviews with people active in the world of cultural diplomacy, cultural interchange, and of course in the world of languages, and mostly people that are part of the so-called business diplomacy in a very ample angle. Why? Because this is what we do as a Dante Alighieri Society. We're part of a network of hundreds of committees worldwide that respond and interact with our headquarters in Rome, but yet independent. And our mission is to promote the Italian language and culture abroad in order to strengthen the intercultural bridges that exist and sustain the globalized world we all live in. And even during this pandemic, or also because of this pandemic, it's extremely important to keep those bridges well maintained so that the communication and the cultural exchange can continue to take place. In this context, of course, being the Dante Alighieri Society in Berlin, we mostly focus on German-Italian relations, but occasionally being Berlin also not only the capital of Germany, but a center of cosmopolitan interaction, we want to adhere to those standards. And hence tonight, we will be speaking about an organization which has a similar mission than ours, but for a different country, of course, and that is also originated through a different process with a different also political institutional legitimacy. So I will say no more, but pass the word to Davide Sirna, who has organized today's interview, and I'm looking forward to learning more today about cultural diplomacy organization. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone here tonight. So today we have the pleasure to interview a person that has been working at the British Council for the last decades and who is an expert in the field of cultural diplomacy and cultural relations. In this case, it's going to be about the UK and Germany. Since we work with Italian-German relations, it will be quite interesting for us to get to know another perspective from our European partners. So I have the pleasure to introduce Professor Elke, who is also a lecturer at the ICD, Academy for Cultural Diplomacy in Berlin, and to ask her a few questions about the British Council and what the British Council is doing right now in this complicated period. So hello, Professor Elke. It's good to have you here tonight.
Good evening.
So I would like to ask you to briefly introduce yourself and say a few words about your background and your work at the moment.
Thank you very much for this very kind introduction, both Luigi and Davide. I would say my approach to life is very much of a comparative nature. After a very long academic career at German and British universities, that's Düsseldorf, Bonn, London, Leicester, I finished academia at the Institute of Comparative Literature at Munich University with a PhD dissertation on a British diplomat, Joseph Charles Mellish, a diplomat at the court of Weimar around 1800. Mellish was a close friend of Friedrich Schiller and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and the first translator of Schiller's play Maria Stuart in English, a classic drama written by a German playwright and almost simultaneously translated into English, dealing with an important moment in British history from a German perspective. Since then, the German-British bilateral and comparative perspective has never really left me. And I joined the British Council as an arts assistant, first in Munich, then as head of arts in Cologne, which was the British Council's former headquarters after the Second World War till the year of 2000. And I'm now based in Berlin. My daily bread is brokering relationships between cultural players, policymakers, artists, art critics, venue organizers, festival directors from the UK and Germany, and often beyond Germany in other European countries like Italy. I've also been teaching a course on nation branding and cultural diplomacy together with Ambassador Karl-Erik Norman at the Berlin Institute for Cultural Diplomacy for a number of years now. That should be okay on me.
Well, I have to say it is quite a background, first of all. So the Dante Alighieri Society was born in the aftermath of the Italian unification in 1860. And its initial aim, I mean, it was founded by the Italian poet and patriot Giosuè Carducci, and its first aim was to promote the Italian language and the Italian culture around the world. Of course, in order to have a strong state, you also need to have one language, of course, but also a strong culture. So that was, let's say, the first objective of Giosuè Carducci and other writers and authors of the period. Today, the Italian language has a special status, we might say. It's the language of fashion, of, the food industry, of course, gastronomy, it has a great role, but of course, also from an economic point of view, especially in the European Union. We would like to know something about let's say, a brief history about the British Council and how it developed and what it stands for today.
Yeah, there are indeed some similarities with the Dante Alighieri Society. The British Council is the UK's international organization for cultural relations and educational opportunities. We are on the ground on 6 continents and in over 100 countries, bringing international opportunity to life every day. The British Council was founded in 1934, and our first overseas offices opened in 1938, making the British Council one of the oldest cultural relations organizations in the world. Originally, we were called the British Committee for Relations with Other Countries. In Italy, the British Council has been represented since 1945. In Germany, the first British Council office was opened later, much later, in 1959. That's over 60 years ago, with a cultural center, with a cinema, with an exhibition space, and with a big library in Cologne, which was close to the new German capital in Bonn. In 1940, the British Council was granted a so-called Royal Charter, which is a formal document issued by the monarch, which set out our mission as promoting a wider knowledge of the UK and the English language abroad, and developing closer cultural relations between the UK and other countries. The British Council's work has evolved over the last 87 years of existence, and it now includes businesses like English language teaching, English language exams like IELTS and APTIS, major contract work, but its main aim continues to make a positive contribution to the countries the British Council works with, a positive contribution, that's our main aim. And by doing so, to improve the UK's international standing, prosperity and security, which are the main ambitions of the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. The British Council's cultural relations goal is to build bridges of trust and understanding among people around the world through its arts and culture, English and education programs. Direct opportunities are given to probably hundreds of millions of people worldwide to learn about British culture and creativity. The British Council understands itself as a people-to-people organization at arm's length from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and its British embassies, which focus mainly on the UK government's view.
Well, that is also a very nice description of what the British Council stands for and what they do. So our last question will be about the role of organizations like the British Council, the Société Dante Alighieri, Alliance Française, and many others. So right now we're living a very special period of history, we have to say. So on the one hand, we have a pandemic, and on the other hand, from a political point of view, there is great trouble because we've had Brexit to begin with. And of course, like people seem to, let's say, take distance from each other. Well, before maybe we were living a period of globalization where everyone was mixed and everyone wanted to know more about other cultures and countries. There seems to be a tendency in the last decades to let's say, close ourselves inside our culture, inside our country. And still, there's also another problem that we all face and that we'll all have to, let's say, think about in the future. That is climate change. Climate change is a problem common to all of us. You can deny it, you can accept it, still, it is there. So, what do you think the role of organizations like the British Council or the Dante Alighieri will be in the future, especially if we visualize these three challenges that we've mentioned?
Yes, I mean, cultural organizations have a very important role to play in our globalized, digitalized, very diverse, and not always stable world. If you consider what importance many of the world's largest nations place on their cultural relations institutions as soft power tools, you can see that governments nowadays fully understand the importance of cultural relations institutions as both influencing and trust-building instruments. Just look at China with the Chinese Cultural Institute, the Confucius Institute, Germany with the Goethe Institute, the DAD, the Pädagogischer Austauschdienst, the Institute for Foreign Relations, South Korea with the Korean Cultural Center, and Russia with the Ruski Mir Foundation and the Russische Haus in Berlin. They have considerably increased the international presence of their cultural relations institutions in the world, and particularly in Europe over the last 10 years. These countries understand how these institutions build trust through language teaching, informing about their country and culture in an attractive and storytelling way, how they encourage people to visit their country and convince the people about the quality of their country through exchange of people. The various cultural relations arms of governments are in a way much better skilled in creating trust, understanding, and mutual friendship than their embassies, because they operate on the people-to-people level and not top-down in the public diplomacy way. Also because they operate at arm's length from governments and are free to present wider, often even controversial views than just that of their government. I think these are real assets that governments become more and more aware of and want to make use of for their own purposes. The role that cultural relations organizations will play in the future, it is certainly a challenging one, but also a very important one. It is challenging because the noise of millions of voices on social media and media channels from all over the world, simultaneously accessible at any moment in time, makes it hard for any cultural relations organization to be heard at all and for their brand to be seen as unique and distinctive. It is important, though the role is important, because cultural relations organizations transmit and live specific ethic, cultural, and aesthetic values which are core to a nation and which are delivered to people all over the world via the work of the cultural relations organization. I really believe that in future, cultural relations organization will have to focus more on joining forces with others. An example is the successful umbrella organization, Munich, which consists of clusters of the cultural arms of the European Union states and has, in its only 20 years of existence, already achieved an amazing global outreach. It is really probably one of the largest cultural relations organizations network that exists. Cultural relations organizations are bilateral networks. To be successful and visible, they will have to focus on collaboration and on co-production, pointing out mutual interests they share with others rather than emphasizing their differences. They will have to become more multilateral, inclusive, open to diverse perspectives, and participate in the networking of international networks. And they will have to say, as you pointed out at the beginning of your question, they will have to engage in the dialogue of global issues like tackling climate change, like offering fair, equal opportunities for people from diverse backgrounds, or like dealing with the impact of the present pandemic on artists and cultural players. Cultural relations organizations have to position themselves within this dialogue. And not least via digital means, they will have to involve much larger numbers and more diverse audiences in their dialogue than they have before. And they will have to do this in partnership with others. I think.
Well, thank you. That is certainly a very nice answer. We could spend hours talking on this subject, but time is not on our side. I would like to thank you. Thank you for answering our questions. Thank you for your time. And I have to say, it was a pleasure. And we hope to get on with this discussion, maybe in presence in Berlin, once the situation will be a bit improved, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation. Bye-bye.
Bye.